Over the past few months, I've noticed myself procrastinating more than ever. Since graduating from university and starting my career, balancing my time and getting things done has become a real challenge. Especially after a long day of work, I often feel unmotivated to work on my personal project or hold on to the things I enjoy doing in my spare time. Okay, now, it's not just me. Over 95% of us admit to procrastinating at least occasionally. By standard, procrastination is nearly a universal experience. Studies show it's linked to increased stress, anxiety, and even physical health issues like weakening immune systems and heart problems. As someone who loves psychology, content creation, and self-experimentation, I decided to make a change. For the next 30 days, I will dive into the science behind procrastination as well as some effective strategies from different schools of thought. I will also be using irrational procrastination skill to track my progress. I know this video took me more than half a year to finish, and it is definitely not because I procrastinated. Well, maybe a little. So yeah, I just printed out the IPS sheet for the next 30 days. So every single day I would track my score. So at the end of 30 days, I can look back and see if there's any changes throughout my 30 days. I put things off so long that my well-being efficiency unnecessarily suffer. At the end of the day, I know I could have spent the time better. Number 5, I spend my time wisely. I'll give myself a 3 when I should do one thing and I would do another. Yes. Okay. The score of 36 points means I'm only 1% away from getting into the top 10% of procrastinators. That's definitely not a good sign. So what exactly is procrastination? It's more than just putting things off until the last minute. It's when we voluntarily delay doing something even though we know we would be worse off. But it's not just about being lazy. Procrastination is tied to our impulsive, the endless distractions we face, and sometimes even our genetics. Our tendency to procrastinate might partially inherited, but that doesn't mean we destined to procrastinate forever. However, it explains why some of us find it harder to resist distractions or delay gratification. There are different reasons why we procrastinate. Researchers have identified 4 types of procrastinators: the thrill seekers, the avoiders, the indecisive, and the impulsive. After some self-reflection, I definitely think I am the indecisive type. I try to make the best plans for everything and end up delaying tasks because I'm afraid of making the wrong choice. But I knew that in order to cure my procrastination, I needed more than just good intentions. I needed a system to trick my brain into loving long, consistent work. So I reached out to Dr. Pierre Stills from the University of Calgary, one of the most influential researchers on procrastination and the author of the procrastination equation. I wanted to know his take on procrastination as well as his advice on my personal journey.
Procrastination isn't just delay. I mean, scheduling is delay. I can't do everything at once. It's doing some things later, some things now. But it's a particular type of delay. When we say procrastinating, it's that we know we should be doing something now, but have decided to do it later. You have to feel that this was against your interest, but you still did it. So that little thought experiment says, if I could give you that motivation to work on it now, would you want it? So he said, yes. So that's not the problem. The problem is you can't find the motivation when you need to. And when do you find the motivation? It happens just before the deadline. It's not under your control. That wasn't a choice. Saying you had to work when you had the motivation. I sometimes say it's like drinking from a fire hose just before the deadline. You have more than enough motivation, right? And earlier, when you'd be more convenient, it's coming from an eyedropper. What we would like mostly for most of us is a tall glass of motivation. I want this much motivation right now. Yet we try to will it into existence. It really helps if you just say, I'm going to do the things that are hardest when I find it easiest. For example, most people have 5 or 6 hours of really high quality energy during the day. Allocate that time not to checking email, but doing your hardest, most important work. You'd be surprised about how much you can goof off the rest of the time. In fact, several writers, professional writers, productive writers, only work 3 hours a day. Their best trick is they try and end in mid-sentence. They're gonna be thinking about they wanna finish that sentence. Remember that feeling, I want to get to it tomorrow. If you can get that one where you're finishing a task and leaving it partly done, that's the hand reaching from one day to the next and shaking it. So the next day, the version of you is now eager to get started.
So here's some quick updates. After 10 days of tracking my procrastination and my IPS score, there's been some progress. I noticed a slight decline in my score over time, which is pretty good. From day 1 to 7, my score would hover around the mid-20s. There was even one day I was managed to hit 19 points, which technically speaking, I was no longer a procrastinator. Well, not true. But jokes aside, I find the progress of tracking itself super useful. Just knowing that I'm going to log my score at the end of the day makes me more motivated and aware of when I'm procrastinating. One of the most important concepts I learned from Dr. Pierre Steele was his concept and procrastination equation. Motivation equal expectancy times value divided by impulsiveness times delay. So if a task feels too hard or unimportant, you are distracted. With a reward that seems far away, your motivation drops and procrastination wins. But the equation also highlights something else. Impulsiveness and delayed were two major barriers holding me back. I needed to identify what was pulling me off track, and this is exactly what I'm going to do next. That's when I create a simple but powerful exercise inspired by Dr. Carolee Graham. After a critical hold, it's called hold mapping. It helped me to pinpoint the things holding me back, my fears, distractions, and motivations, and visualize the path forward. The innermost circles reflect my core self. The second circle represents the space of work and study. You can use yarn or cord to create a circle yourself, and you can even sit in the middle to create a physical representation. I gather objects that symbolize my fears, distractions, and hope, and place them into the circle where they felt most relevant. By physically situating these elements, I could see the interplay between them and better understand what drives my procrastination. After placing myself in the middle, first, I will ask myself, where do my fears live right now? These are what makes me hesitate or hold back, often because I don't feel confident. Second, where do my distractions live right now? These are the things that constantly pull our attention away from what really matters. Is it social media, binge watching shows, my phone buzzing every few minutes? These substitutions are what we turn to when things get hard. Finally, where does my hold live? This is where we want to be. Our motivation, our reason to push forward. And for my case, I draw a little flower to represent my hope. By mapping out my fears, distractions, and hope, I create a physical representation of what's holding me back and the path forward. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Okay, so I feel like for this experiment is a little bit different than any other experiments I ever had. To be honest with you, the 30 days challenge, it wasn't as hard as I thought. The real challenge appears after I finish this 30 days challenge. As an educational content creator, someone who interested in psychology, I ran into an obstacle or vicious cycle of chasing productivity. I'd try to squeeze every second of my day. I remember there was a time where I had to add volunteering into my everyday tasks. I just remember how frustrated I was, and every time when I had a monitor shift, I'd experience panic attack before my shift started because I worry I wasn't good enough and I didn't have enough energy to help people as much as I can. Research have shown that being too tired is one of the top reasons why people procrastinated. From work to fitness to video project, I had the ambition to do it all, but my brain didn't have the bandwidth to sustain that kind of lifestyle. Our energy isn't unlimited. It's a limited and renewable resource. My energy was stretched to things I was overloading myself for the sake of being productive. At that time, I had to make a difficult decision. I decided to pause of this project indefinitely so that I can focus on other projects in my life, such as my Distress Lines volunteer and my work, and also, like taking care of my cats too, and my well-being, mental well-being. So that's why it took me almost 6 months to make a conclusion of this experiment. And here is my answer of curing procrastination. When do you have the most energy? And then identify 3 most important tasks you need to focus on in a day. And for some days when you feel like you don't have that much of energy, it is also completely okay to only focus on 3 things.
If you're working till exhaustion each day, you're not leaving anything to really for the next day. In fact, you're kind of making ending at an aversive quality. Now, I have to do that sometime, especially when I have a deadline. And even though I've tried to do it ahead of time, too many responsibilities. Sometimes I have to push myself more than I would like, but there is a rhythm of life that you're trying to get back to. Right? You're not just trying to let it happen. You're trying to, you make a move, life makes a move. Sometimes you have to react to it, but as soon as you're capable, you're trying to veer it back into a schedule that works for you. If you have a trouble getting started the next day, you're kind of but whatever it is, I wouldn't beat myself up.
Understand our motivation on doing certain thing is one thing. Another important piece, as I later discover, is conquering the negative emotion. It is so important to acknowledge those negative emotions and confront them with curiosity.
Below the surface of what appears to be procrastination for somebody not getting things done or wasting time, and view procrastination from the lens of psychological science. When we do so, it becomes very clear why emotions are central in understanding whether somebody both starts to procrastinate and whether they're going to continue to procrastinate as well.
Boredom, frustration, difficulty, resentment, anxiety, fearfulness, all those things are related to task aversiveness. And you could also investigate and say, so why do I feel anxious? Well, because this means so much to me. This is my whole identity on the line. And realize, first of all, that it's pretty irrational, and you can deal with that. And then that's the common humanity, self-compassion part. But it's also then you recognize that this is really important to me. So rather than putting it off today, which is going to jeopardize me, I really need to work on it.
Studies have also found that by forgiving ourselves for procrastinating helps us to pick ourselves up and try it again. And that forgiveness starts with understanding our procrastination is part of our human experience. The secret of conquering procrastination isn't about stopping it for good. It's about having the resilience to pick yourself up when you hit a slump. A technique that helped me to push through those moments is called implementation intention by Dr. Peter Goviser. In situation X, I would do behavior Y to achieve sub-goal Z. In other words, what is the tiniest steps you can take right now to step towards your goal? Procrastination isn't failure. It's a signal. For me, it often means I'm stepping into a challenging territory or something that is completely new to me. Other time is my brain's way of telling me I'm taking too much on my plate. Here's a quick rundown of the techniques that work for me, and I hope they can work for you too. Looking back for the past 6 months, were there moments of doubts? Absolutely. Were there step backs? Of course. But every step forward, no matter how big or small, reinforced the changes I was making. And now it's your turn.